All right, hello YouTube. Here we go. A follow up. This is a Fox News report about the fourth unidentified flying object to be shot down over Lake Huron. So let's listen up, see what the.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us tonight,
This is the
particularly
Pentagon briefing.
so short notice and on Super Bowl Sunday here in the U.S. no less.
And today's Tuesday, though.
Takedown of an airborne object over Lake
So it's a
Huron,
little
Michigan.
late.
We wanted to ensure you had the latest information and also
As
answer
far
any
as
questions you had
breaking news.
in order to provide any additional context on NORAD's efforts to monitor, track, and appropriately address these kinds of objects. Joining us tonight is Assistant Secretary of Defense for Homeland Defense and Hemispheric Affairs, Melissa Dalton, and General Glenn Van Herk, Commander of North American Aerospace Defense Command and U.S. Northern Command. Today's discussion is on the record. I'll turn it over to Assistant Secretary Dalton, who will provide some brief comments, followed by General Van Herk, and then we'll take your questions. With that, over to you, Secretary Dalton.
Great, thanks so much, Pat, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining the call. We do aim to be transparent about our military operations, and so we wanted to provide an update on the most recent Homeland Defense operations that occurred this afternoon. I'm going to provide a brief overview and then turn to General Van Herk to provide an operational perspective as well. In light of the People's Republic of China balloon that we took down last Saturday, we have been more closely scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, including enhancing our radar, which may at least partly explain the increase in objects that we've detected over the past week. We also know that a range of entities, including countries, companies, research organizations, operate objects at these altitudes for purposes that are not nefarious, including legitimate research. That said, because we have not yet been able to definitively assess what these recent objects are, we have acted out of an abundance of caution to protect our security and interests. The spy balloon from the PRC was, of course, different in that we knew precisely what it was. These most recent objects do not pose a kinetic military threat, but their path and proximity to sensitive DoD sites and the altitude that they were flying could be a hazard to civilian aviation and thus raise concerns. Again, as we have said, we do not assess that the recent objects pose any direct threat to people on the ground, and we are laser focused on confirming their nature and purpose, including through intensive efforts to collect debris in the remote locations where they have landed after being shot down. We are in close coordination and cooperation with the Government of Canada, as well as through NORAD with the Canadian military. Thanks very much. Look forward to your questions, and I'll hand it over to General Van Herk.
Thanks, Secretary Dalton. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today and provide you an update.
We're giving away these gold bars absolutely free. And did you notice who's on it? That's right, none other than Donald J., who will make this country great once again. Isn't it just beautiful?
Get away from
These are just fantastic, let me tell you. They're perfect to collect and keep for yourself, or maybe even to gift a friend or family member who loves Joe.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Either way,
share it out if you want to spread the word.
Every day, North American Aerospace Defense Command and United States Northern Command monitor the approaches to North America and the United States of America across all domains. And yesterday evening, approximately 16:45 or 4:45 Eastern Time on 11 February, NORAD detected a radar contact in Canadian airspace, approximately 70 or so miles north of the United States border. We began tracking that radar contact, and when it became clear it was an unknown, following normal NORAD procedures, it was not talking to the Federal Aviation Administration, no squawk, and approaching our air defense identification zone. I scrambled F-15 fighters from Portland, Oregon, along with a KC-135 tanker support from Fairchild Air Force Base in Washington to go investigate, to identify what the radar contact was. At 1800 Eastern or 6 p.m. Eastern, the radar track crossed into the United States sovereign airspace. At 7:04 Eastern Time, the F-15s with their tanker support were on station to investigate. We continued to investigate, and what's important to point out, this is near dark, within a half hour, 45 minutes of dark. We continued to investigate to identify, locate the object. We were unsuccessful. It's also important to point out in this part of the United States, we did not have data link for queuing like we had had before. Data link allows the radars on the ground to share information to the fighters airborne, allowing them to cue their sensors and their visual acuity in an attempt to visually identify the trap. As sunset, we were unable to find the track. Also, our radar operators lost the track on radar, and the FAA was never tracking the radar. Therefore, that's why we called it an anomaly, because we weren't able to identify it. Several hours later, overnight, we began seeing an intermittent radar contact east of the position in Montana as it approached Wisconsin. At that point, we developed a game plan once we started seeing another radar contact to go investigate. It's likely, but we have not confirmed that the track that we saw in Wisconsin was likely the same track in Montana. We elected to scramble with the best position to intercept if we needed to engage with the lowest collateral damage, and that was in the eastern portion of Wisconsin, just prior to Lake Michigan, when the fighters became on the track of interest at that time. We monitored the track of interest as it passed over Lake Michigan. We assessed that it was no threat, physical threat, military threat, critical infrastructure. That's my assessment. It continues to be today. However, at this point, we still have an unknown, and it forces a broader discussion about what is this object that's in our U.S. Sovereign airspace. It's within our Federal Aviation Administration airspace, not providing any communications, not providing any notice that could potentially help us deconflict. And therefore, we wanted to investigate further. We did. It tracked across the upper peninsula of Michigan. We were cleared to engage the target in eastern upper peninsula of Michigan, overland, and ultimately down the object at this point, about 15 nautical miles east of the upper peninsula in Lake Huron. What we saw is an object that began drifting, potentially, most likely landed in Canadian waters in Lake Huron. And we have ongoing recovery operations with Coast Guard assets moving towards this area. I would like to highlight this entire time. I remained in contact with my Canadian boss, General Wayne Air. The Canadians were very supportive. The Canadians launched 2 F-18s plus their tanker as well to support this operation. The fighters were from Madison, Wisconsin, Air National Guard unit. We utilized a tanker from Pittsburgh Air National Guard, and we had an AWACS on station from Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma. That's all I have for my operational update, and I look forward to your questions.
Yeah, like,
Booking.com.
what about the other ones they shot down? More commercials, awesome.
A beach house, a tree house, on.
So what were the first 3? Okay, they don't know what this one is. What were the first 3? How come they haven't, if they're looking?
Secretary Dalton, General Van
This is
Herk,
some
thank you
double
both.
speak in
For our
coverage
first
right
question,
here.
we'll go to Associated Press, Tara Cobbs.
Hi, thank you very much, both of you, for doing this at this late
Double
hour.
speak.
For Secretary Dalton and for General Van Herk, we've had 4 shoot downs in the last 8 days. Can you talk about the sense of concern you have, and should Americans be worried? This is a very rare thing to have this many shoot downs or any shoot downs over U.S. airspace. And then secondly, General Van Herk, can you give us any indication of what your pilots are seeing and reporting? Thanks.
Hey, before we jump into the question, just a reminder, everyone, please mute your phone.
Buffering, awesome sauce. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Sounds like we have an open mic out there. My apologies. Over to you, ma'am.
Great. Tara, thanks so much for the question and for dialing in also at a late hour. The safety and security of the American people are job number one for us at the Department of Defense and,
Oh, yeah,
and certainly
yeah.
for NORAD
Sure.
and General Van Herk's team. We, following the track of the PRC balloon last week, as I mentioned at the top, we have been more closely scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, enhancing our radar, which may at least
Okay, she
partly
talks so
explain
much
the
about
increase
stuff
in
that's
the
not
objects
answering any
detected.
questions or getting any
But we
information
also
across
know
or
that there are a
accomplishing
range of
anything.
entities out there, whether they're private
us how
companies,
prepared you
research
are to
organizations,
tell the street
that
people
operate
and the
objects at these altitudes for purposes
ignorance
that are not
and
nefarious, including
just
legitimate
giving up on
research.
finding out.
But because we have not been able to definitively assess what these recent objects are, the president wanted to act out of an abundance of caution to protect our security and our interests.
They can't
So we
protect
will
us
remain
from those
vigilant. We
UFOs.
have made these enhancements to our radars, and the operations this past week have been successful in bringing down these potential threats. And we are hard at work now recovering the
Hey, this is the
debris to
same
better
government that just
understand,
admitted there are UFOs that they've known about all along.
the surveillance that's going
So they've been
on
lying to us all
airspace,
along, but they're
but
telling
also
us the truth
nature
now.
of these
Oh,
unidentified
yeah,
objects,
yeah,
to
just
better
get to the,
understand, were they surveillance objects, what was their purpose, what are their capabilities, and we look forward to sharing more as we learn more in the coming days.
how about sharing something now?
Thanks, Melissa. Let me just add on. So your question was about citizens being considered. I assess all of these to be non-kinetic threats to the homeland. And I don't see that
Non-kinetic.
changing even when you're recovering.
So they're not physical, but they could be biological, they could be chemical, they could be radio magnetic,
defend,
electromagnetic.
deter as required. So I think this is a story where we were successful in detecting and if needed, to respond. What I would tell you is what we're seeing is very, very small objects that produce a very, very low radar cross section. I'm not going to go into detail about shapes or anything like that, really, because it's really, really difficult for pilots at the altitudes we're operating. It's a very, very slow.
Cigar shaped and or
the speed of the wind, essentially, and our pilots are going 100 miles per hour to give us what I would consider a factual, scientific-based description of what we see, and therefore I'm hesitant to tell you that. With that being said, I would like to talk about the radar and the challenges that we face. Something going this slow, it's rare.
Oh yeah, they're talking about they can't identify it. There are pictures of these things.
Filter out information based on speed. So you can set various gates, we call them velocity gates, that allow us to filter out low speed clutter. So if you have radars on all the time that we're looking at anything from 0 speed.
In other words, they're explaining all around where, okay, what about the visual?
We've adjusted some of those gates to give us better fidelity on seeing slower objects. You can also filter out by altitude. And so with some adjustments, we've been able to get a better categorization of radar tracks now. And that's why I think you're seeing these overall. Plus, there's a heightened alert to look for this information. I hope that adds additional clarification.
No,
Just
they
one quick
just talked
follow-up.
around the question.
4 shoot downs in 8 days. When was the last time that U.S. fighters were scrambled and shot something down over U.S. airspace? I can't remember anything, and it just seems like there's a large and quick escalation to shooting down objects.
I'll have to get with our historians. I believe this is the first time within United States of America airspace that NORAD or United States Northern Command has taken kinetic action against an airborne object.
Which is
Thank you,
physical
sir. Thank
action.
you, sir, ma'am. Let's go to Jen Griffin, Fox News.
Hey, thanks, Pat. This is Liz. I'll be asking for Jen today. Are these balloons that have been shot down since Friday, or are they weather balloons?
You want me to take
Thanks
that?
very much for the question. Yep, go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, so I'm not going to categorize them as balloons. We're calling them objects for a reason. Certainly the event off the South Carolina coast for the Chinese spy balloon, that was clearly a balloon. These are objects. I am not able to categorize how they stay aloft. It could be a gaseous type of balloon inside a structure, or it could be some type of a propulsion system. But clearly, they're able to stay aloft. I would be hesitant to and urge you not to attribute it to any specific country. We don't know. That's why it's so critical to get our hands on these so that we can further assess and analyze what they are.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Nancy Youssef, Wall Street Journal.
Thank you. To both of you, you're saying that their preliminary assessment is that they don't pose a kinetic threat, but that they are objects and not balloons, and that you need to sort of adjust your radar. And I guess I'm trying to get an understanding, what is the expectation going forward, or at least in the next few days? Is it your plan to continue to shoot these down, or to make adjustments such that you can make assessments better, that they don't always have to happen when you're shooting something down? I'm trying to get a sense of the adjustment, General Panner, that you referred to, and what that will look like, practically speaking, in the days ahead. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nancy, thanks for the question. So the expectation going forward is we'll continue to doing our mission exactly like we've been doing now, approaching 65 years for NORAD. If there's an unknown object that enters either Canadian or U.S. airspace, we will go out, we will attempt to identify it. If it's a threat, kinetic threat, military threat, I am delegated the authority if it commits a hostile act or hostile intent. Well, let me describe hostile act. Hostile act would be shooting a missile, dropping a bomb, taking aggressive action. A hostile intent would be maneuvering to an offensive position against our forces or something like that. In that situation, I'm cleared directly to engage without further permission. In this case, there's no hostile act or hostile.
Hitting the buffering problem. I don't want to take too much from them anyway. My connection just rebooted. That's pretty much about half of it anyhow. It's gonna just keep buffering. Because again, my internet connection just went. So what I will do is recommend that if you want to check out the Pentagon briefing live now on Fox. And that was, I believe, Sunday. Today being Tuesday the 14th. So it's been about the 11th. Thank you. Now we know what they plan to do in response to these objects. Have a good day, good night, good evening, whatever the case may be, wherever you are when you see this. Matt out.